Okay, what's good, people? What you're looking at right now is a version of what one day does, one day of air travel does to the skies in North Carolina. And the reason I'm saying air travel is because if you use the wrong words, people automatically reject your message. Because a lot of people believe these trails don't come from condensation. A lot of people believe they come from chemicals. And I happen to be one of those people. And I want to show you, take a few minutes, maybe 15, 20 minutes to show you why exactly I believe that. Not only by showing you what I recorded on my own, in the amount of one day. And I've been looking at the skies for about 3 years, but this is what I've actually recorded in one solid day in about a course of 12 hours. So I want to use this footage that you're looking at right now to show you why I believe this is not normal and this condensation should not stay in the skies as long as it does. But first, what I want to do is show you the definition of condensation. Okay, the first thing I did was looked up the definition for condensation, and it says condensation is the change of the physical state of matter from the gas phase into the liquid phase. And when you go to Webster's dictionary or go to Google and you look up the definition for condensation, these are the pictures that you're given. But if you go to Wikipedia and look up condensation, the first thing you're given is a picture of an airplane. And this is the liquid. This is the liquid they say that you see in the skies when you see the condensation trails, and in my opinion it does not look like enough to cause what we see, but I don't know, so I kept looking further. And to be clear, the more I looked, the more I found out. I was like, okay, so they're spraying the skies. What is the purpose? What is the point? I mean, what are you trying to gain by controlling the layers of clouds?
Man to determine the world's cloud layer. Ultimately, to control the weather, and he who controls the weather will control the world.
So I started looking up into, condensation and chemical trails, and the first thing it led me to was weather modification. So if you go to your computer and you type in weather modification, it's gonna send you to the government page for the 1979 Act. And so when I went to that page and I investigated, these are some of the things that you can do with weather modification or cloud seeding. It was 3 things that stood out to me the most. Number 3 says you are allowed to participate in weather modification as long as the development of instruments and modification techniques to enhance experimental and operational weather modification activities are recorded. So that means pass them the information. And the 4th thing that says cooperative efforts between the federal government and universities, private interests, state and local governments, and other nations to obtain the maximum amount of scientific knowledge from weather modification projects. So what they're trying to do is learn how to do this better. I mean, I don't see why people will still think it's not a real thing after you read this. People don't go through this much trouble just to make up something that they're not actually actively participating in. But the thing that, caught my attention the most is number 6. It says the study of the economic, environmental, legal, and social effects from weather modification. What does that mean? Study of social effects? Are they trying to say they want to see how people behave? Because I'm a type of person that works outside in construction. So if it rains a lot, it affects my, my work. So, I'm trying to see, is that part of the social experiment? How weather affects the economic adjustments of people in certain areas? I don't know. But when I seen that it was allowed for private industries to participate in weather modification, I said, okay, so if this thing is true and people are really modifying the weather, it has to be some company that they can go to. So I typed in weather modification. I kept scrolling down, and what came up was Weather Modification Incorporated. And I was like, oh my God, this can't be real. Somebody got to be just putting this up there, you know what I'm saying, to, throw people off or whatnot. But I mean, if the government's saying this is legal, why would you hide it? And when I go up there and I look in, they got a list of claims. They also plainly define what cloud seeding is. They explain what type of agents they use when they do cloud seeding. They explain what goals they're trying to reach by weather modification, because some of it is to make it rain, and some of it is to reflect the rays of the sun off the earth, because of this whole thing as far as global warming and everything. So they completely break this thing down. And also, I wanted to add this. Let me go back for a minute, add another screen, because Bloomberg actually did a report on weather modification, and if you type that in, scroll down a little bit, and you can see the article, Weather on Demand, Making It Rain is now a global business. And what else do you need? What else do you need to know? And my only concern about weather modification, because I'm not trying to say it's bad, I'm not one of those fear-mongering people, but the only thing that concerns me about it is we don't actually know what's going on, because they haven't studied the long-term effects, of what these chemicals do to people. And it's not something that's widely talked about. And if you scroll down, you'll read about these. I don't think these are the two brothers, Patrick Sweeney and his brother. They started a company back in North Dakota, but they make like $20 million a year. These are some of the planes that they have in their business. They said they've been doing it for 20 years, all the different countries. This is just showing how they're loading the equipment. This is more of their planes. This thing is real, people. And what people are unaware of is the government involvement. And before I get into how the government is actually involved into this, I want to give you a sidebar. I want to talk about the Manhattan Project for a minute. The Manhattan Project, if you're unaware of it, is when they were experimenting with splitting the atom. At this time, they split the atom to create the atom bomb, but they were having a hard time controlling the plutonium. So what they did, they went to this company called Monsanto, who was very popular in the early 1900s. And keep that name in mind, because I'm going to come back to them later on. But they went to this company called Monsanto's, and they hired one of their scientists to help control to build something to control the plutonium. So that was their first dealings with this group, Monsanto. Well, apparently, the scientists did a good job. The government was impressed, and I guess Monsanto became interested into government projects, because if you fast forward to Operation Ranch Hand, I think that's what Operation Ranch Hand. If you fast forward to Operation Ranch Hand, Monsanto's along with a couple other companies were hired to create an agent that would destroy the bushes and I guess the shrubbery along the Ho Chi Minh Trail, because that was the main trail that they used in the war in Vietnam. You know what I'm saying? So they paid this company to use some of their insecticides, and one of them was orange. and they call it Agent Orange. And when they sprayed this insecticide, it caused long-lasting conditions. If you ever, matter of fact, let me go and pull up some pages. I'm just gonna show you the actual chemical and the process of spraying, just to show you how planes are used to spray and spray chemicals. I'm not gonna go down and show you the effect because there's just no need to show those children. If you stay up 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, you'll see them on TV anyway, and it just shows the effect, and not only the effect of the people in Vietnam, but a lot of the war veterans came back and they're still actively suing the government. But now to go back to the modifying weather, during that same period, the government started what is known as Operation Popeye. And during Operation Popeye, that was a highly classified weather modification program in Southeast Asia during 1967 and 1972. The cloud seeding operation during the Vietnam War ran from March 20th, 1967 until July 5th, 1972. Specifically, over areas of the Ho Chi Minh Trail, the operation was used to induce rain to extend the East Asian monsoon season in support of the U.S. government efforts related to the war in Southeast Asia. That shows you how the weather modification was used during times of war by our government. And I know you're probably saying, so what's the point of them hiding this and keeping it to themselves? Because if you're paying enough attention, the first thing you should ask, if they're able to, and not control the weather, let me make sure I change my wordage, not control the weather, but modify the weather. If you're aware that the government can modify the weather, the first thing you should ask is why they aren't modifying the weather when we have all these hurricanes and floods. Like, what is going on during that period? Why aren't we talking about this openly? Why isn't this a course in school? And it's like, if you start asking those questions, then you're gonna start asking a million other questions. And if they because this is one thing I learned about the government that is so amazing. They don't really lie. They just hide or either don't tell you. So you have the information and it's readily available. All you have to do is actually research. And what a lot of people don't realize is we have this thing called the Freedom of Information Act. A lot of people talked about the hippies back in the 60s and 70s, but that's something they fought for, a more transparent government. So due to the Freedom of Information Act, you can actually go and subpoena certain files to be open. And that's what a lot of people did. And once they opened those files, you were able to see things like this. And a lot of people wonder why every time there's a great disaster, we seem to blame the government. Reasons like this, things like this make us always point the finger at the government. And then when we point the finger, we find out later on, hey, you weren't overly paranoid. They were actually doing something wrong. But what they do is they wait 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years later. By that time, that person who was interested in what was going on then is old and is ready probably to retire or can't even move and operate like they used to. And that's what a lot of people fail to realize about the government. It's an entity. You can't think of it as the president or the mayor. You got to think of it as president and mayor. That's an entity. That symbol or that word president or mayor or governor has been sitting in place for years, and it's been what it is. And it's an actual entity. Like some people might say it's almost religious what politics have become. So I try to fall back and realize you can't. Sometimes they give you someone to blame, like I feel like they're doing right now with Trump. They're giving you someone to hate. And the whole time with Obama, a lot of the laws that are being activated right now were actually pushed through when Obama was president. But the powers that be knew if they would have said it then, it would have been a big uproar and something would have been had to been done because of who was in office. But with Trump, he can just say, I don't care, and nobody's gonna look too suspicious. They can say, oh, we're trying to get this done, but Trump won't let us. You're saying what the Republicans were saying, they were trying to get whatever done, but Obama wouldn't let them. But that's a whole nother story for another time. But right now I want to go back into these final photos of what condensation does to your skies.
Mason, why are you screaming?